This is a true life story of a poor single mother who was abandoned by her husband to cater for herself and their two little children. It was raining heavily that night as Maria sat by the dim light of a flickering candle, her hands trembling over a stack of overdue bills. The small, leaky apartment was quiet now, save for the occasional cough from the tiny bedroom where her 4-year-old son and the newborn baby lay sleeping. Her heart ached at the thought of him waking up to yet another day of ration meals and patched clothes. Maria had never imagined her life would come to this. Just a few years ago, she was a young woman full of dreams, her laughter lighting up any room she entered. But everything changed when the father of her kids walked out the door, leaving her to face the world alone. Her days were a blur of back-breaking shifts at the diner, where she smiled through her exhaustion for tips that barely covered the essentials. Her nights were consumed with worry. How would she pay the rent this month? Would the landlord give her just one more week? Still, Maria found strength in her innocent children, holding them as they sleep in her hands. She wept in silence. It was for them that she pushed through the pain, the hunger, and the relentless judgments from a world that barely seemed to notice her struggle. But tonight, as the rain echoed her tears against the windowpane, Maria felt her resolve falter. She looked at the photo on the wall, taken in better times, and whispered, "I don't know how much longer I can do this." And yet, even in her darkest moment, Maria knew she couldn't give up. For her children, she would fight against the tide, piece together a life from the shards of her broken dreams, and carve a path forward, no matter how steep. For Maria, being a single mother wasn't just a role, it was a battle, an agony wrapped in hope, the hope that someday, her children would see the sacrifices she made and know how deeply they were loved. Weeks had passed since that stormy night, and Maria's life remained a delicate balancing act on the edge of collapse. The bills kept piling up, and the diner had cut her hours. She often skipped meals, pretending she wasn't hungry, so her children could eat. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, and the shadows under her eyes deepened. One afternoon, Maria stood outside her son's preschool, clutching a threadbare jacket against the biting wind. Parents hurried past her, chatting about vacations and playdates. Maria looked away, feeling the familiar pang of inadequacy. When Jimmy, her son, bounded out of the classroom, his face lit up like sunshine. He held out a crumpled drawing. "Look, Mommy. It's us," he exclaimed. Maria crouched down to examine the picture. It was a messy blend of crayon colors, but there they were, a stick figure mother and son, standing under a rainbow. Above them, Jamie had written, with shaky letters, "My mom is my hero." Her throat tightened as she fought back tears. To her son, she wasn't the worn-down woman battling exhaustion every day, she was a hero. That small piece of paper, crafted by her son's tiny hands, became her lifeline. But life didn't give her much time to bask in that fleeting joy. That evening, the landlord came knocking, his voice curt. "You're 2 months behind, Maria. I can't keep letting this slide." Desperation clawed at her chest as she begged for just one more month. The landlord sighed, his expression softening. "1 month, Maria. That's all I can do." After he left, Maria sank to the floor, clutching Jamie's drawing. Her mind raced with ideas. She could pick up a second job or sell the few possessions she had left. But deep down, she knew even that might not be enough. Then came a knock at the door. Maria hesitated, wondering who it could be. She opened it to find her neighbor, Mrs. Carter, holding a steaming casserole dish. "I thought you could use a hot meal," the elderly woman said with a kind smile. Maria's eyes welled up as she took the dish. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Mrs. Carter touched her arm gently. "You're not alone, dear. Let me know if you need anything." That simple act of kindness lit a spark in Maria. She realized that while she couldn't change her circumstances overnight, she didn't have to face them entirely alone. Maria began to reach out. She found a community food pantry and applied for assistance programs she had once been too proud to consider. It wasn't easy, standing in line, filling out forms, and explaining her situation, but it was necessary. One day, as Jamie played with a second-hand toy someone had donated, Maria sat down with a notebook and began listing her dreams. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival. The journey was far from over, and the agony of her struggle hadn't disappeared. But with Jamie's unwavering love and the support of small kindnesses, Maria felt a glimmer of hope. She was still tired, still scared, but she was no longer completely alone. And that made all the difference.